Arfa,
Actually,
3 points that have been made so far, even if it targets Pakistan. Pakistan is a state sponsor of radical Islamist terror that has bled us from 1947. How does that equate anything with Indian Muslims?
I'm saying I'm okay with
why
that.
are you
But my friend
extrapolating
who's
Pakistan
just
with Indian Muslims?
I'm saying my friend who's just, kind of spoke just before me. I'm saying
Yes,
that
as
is
soon as
such
Arfa
a
completes a point, Zeba, and then you, Saira. My
that is
apologies,
such
ladies,
a
but yes,
privilege.
Arfa.
That is such a privileged point of view. 200 million Muslims in India right now do not have the luxury of this cultural debate, the kind of hatred this film incites against Muslims in general. They do not know Pakistani Muslims, they do not know Bangladeshi Muslims, they do not know Indian Muslims. You've seen Gaurav lynchings happening because of the kind of hatred that is being incited by news channels. Now look at this at the scale of in 2000.
But
A
ma'am, there were no
a
news
film is
channels when
such.
Hindus were being killed in Kashmir. There were no news channels that were inciting. There was, when Ralif Galif
No, no, no.
Salif
What
was
I'm trying to
happening
say here,
in
Gaurav,
Kashmir, there were no news channels. So why blame news
you
channels
can
for
debate.
something that's happening in society?
Gaurav, you can debate and bring in history till the cows come home. Let's talk about 2025. What's happening in 2025? What's happening in
Convenient.
2025 is there is a vulnerable community, 200 million Muslims, whose politics of the day is attacking them, the whole social media sphere. And now, besides the news channel, there is a very popular super hit film that shows them in a very poor light.
That
And
shows
this is
Pakistanis in
bound to
poor
create
light.
reaction.
Why would
People
you
don't
equate
know.
Pakistanis with Indian Muslims? Is the
Gaurav,
point
people
that
don't know.
Advaita is raising repeatedly.
I'm saying
And
people
Zeba.
don't know. It's about Muslim symbols. Imagine a slogan like Allahu Akbar has been used so viciously. I mean, it has been completely out of context that this is a slogan, this is a nara that should be that the terrorists are saying. So if tomorrow
But
a
terrorists
Muslim
are
like
saying
me,
it, aren't they?
I'm saying if a Muslim like me, but when the film amplifies it, it has direct and negative impact. Now
Okay,
tomorrow, if you
Advaita wants
have
to quickly respond to you, ma'am.
Well, Arfa, the Muslim terrorists are saying this term. So it's a fact. It's not something, it's not what the majority do or use it in that context, but it does happen in life. So that for it to be repeated on celluloid is not unsurprising. And I really think that, this sort of paranoia, like tomorrow, if I make a film on that poor tailor, Kanhaiya Lal, who was beheaded, am I again going to be inciting and projecting and showing everybody in a bad light? Or am I telling a story which is very tragic and has a social message when it comes to tolerance? Yes, there's lynching. Yes, there have been beheadings. These are all problematic things. But to conflate everything into this victimhood narrative, like I said, through the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the representation of women in cinema, there's a lot to argue about when it comes to cinema.
Real lives at
Okay.
stake, and
It's
the
not
least you
just
expect.
one thing.
Okay, Saira wants to respond to you, Advaita, and then I'll bring in Zeba. Saira.
And the least you expect from a filmmaker is social responsibility.
Arfa, give me a moment. Arfa, let me just quickly bring in Saira.
Please, it's my turn to talk. Whatever you might say, Advaita, it is very clear that Dhurandar reflects the mindset that BJP is normalized so easily since the past, 10, 12 years, where strength is noise, dissent is considered betrayal, and nationalism is defined by exclusion. Let's be very clear that, they're very, very clear about the
How does it exclude Indian Muslims?
I don't want.
So then every film of this sort should succeed. There are films that have been rejected by the audience.
Let me complete. Advaita, I did not heckle you. Let me complete. Okay?
I'm not heckling you, I'm making a point.
Let me complete. This film is not just a film. It's a cultural project by the Bharatiya Janata Party that rewards obedience and punishes empathy. Let us be very clear. The danger is not about taking a political stand. The issue is that when cinema becomes a megaphone for the ruling parties and securities, that's where the problem lies.
Zeba, is that also your take? Is this film becoming a megaphone to vilify Indian Muslims? I don't care if Pakistani terrorists are being exposed, if a colony in Karachi where there are criminal gangs, and we know there are criminal gangs that operated out of Karachi for decades and decades.
I'm not allowed to talk. This is not done.
See, Pakistan's worst victims of its system are Muslim.
A lecture, but go on. Zeba wants to come in. Zeba hasn't come in, Saira.
Yeah.
Permit me.
Yeah.
Go on,
See,
Zeba.
we are talking about Indian Muslim, but Pakistan's worst victims of their system are Muslim themselves. What about the Peshawar APC school massacre? What about the enforced displacement across Pakistan, over 10,000 cases? If exposing a system that kills, disappears, and brutalizes Muslims by thousands is anti-Muslim, then human rights reports are Islamophobic too. And as a practicing Muslim, I don't need liberal gatekeepers to tell me what is or what isn't Islamophobic. I can tell the difference between criticizing Pakistan's deep state or hating my own community. You're talking about gore and, that the movie is too gory and desensitizing, people clenching their pearls at Dhurandar's violence, but the film is still less brutal than the reality. Pakistan's own history, when you read it like a script, there's no Indian director would dare to shoot it. School children massacred in Peshawar, Shia pilgrims being bombed, Sufi shrines and churches being attacked, whatnot. Baloch activists disappeared and dumped in mass graves.
The people of Balochistan fighting for their independence.
And Dhurandar comprises of 30 years of architecture of violence into 3.5 hours. You are saying that you cannot do a dinner after
Arfa, 30 seconds. Let me bring in Meghna and then you respond to Meghna. Meghna, you wanted to come in. My apologies for the delay. Go on, Meghna.
Under anti-Muslim, I think it reduces a very textured narrative into a very lazy label.
Only Meghna, please.
The film has Muslim antagonists, yes. But does that make the film anti-Muslim? No. The film also goes out of its way to show Muslim victims, not just perpetrators. It shows Muslim characters who are patriotic, the political machinery that recruits and brainwashes and weaponizes, and the Indian state's own failure. So the human cost of radicalization. Aditya Dhar, the filmmaker's past body of work, right? For Uri, for example, he's obsessed with nationhood. He's not obsessed with demonizing a community. So I think when critics or anybody else is calling it anti-Muslim, what they're doing is, I think, reacting to their own discomfort that nationalism, when told cinematically, feels like propaganda to them. Nationalism is not a slur. Patriotism is not hate speech. And Dhar is not making a documentary for a think tank. He's making a mainstream spy thriller that's grounded in some reality. So let's not conflate these issues.
Arfa wants to quickly come in and respond, because Arfa, permit me one more question. So there are filmmakers in the Indian film industry who have, for whatever they may think, they show a very glamorous ISI agent working with a rock star looking raw agent, and they're lovers and they operate together. That's one film. There's another one that shows, an Indian army officer as a terrorist, a Hindu officer is shown as a terrorist, and that Pakistanis want peace and then they work towards peace, and all of that. That is all okay. That does not vilify Hindus. That does not do anything bad to Hindus. But if Dhurandar comes, there is this thermonuclear outrage. Arfa, the question Adwaita is asking, or Meghna, isn't this blatant double standards, even in our civil society?
Gaurav, there is a very fine line between, exercising the right to a creative license and trying to actively incite hatred and violence. The films that you have mentioned above, we may have our disagreements. I think those films were very unreal, to say the least. But leave that aside. If they're not real lives at stake, our society is at a breaking point. There is a mighty government. There is a majoritarian sentiment that goes
not at
against
breaking point.
Where
is the society at breaking point?
I am saying this as a
We're
journalist
a strong,
and
vibrant
as somebody.
democracy.
I'm saying this as a journalist who's reported on India for 25 years, and as someone who is myself a Muslim, I have seen it by myself that our society is at a breaking point where there is a huge, deep mistrust being fueled by everything that the government supports. And now comes this super hit film, which is so well made. I also want to congratulate the filmmakers for making this excellent film. I only wish if they had used this power and creativity and this art to create something beautiful that brought people together, instead of just, already vulnerable people just attacking them and making their lives more vulnerable. For heaven's sake, I'm just saying and pleading on your screens, please do not, and please use your creative license to create something beautiful that brings people together, that challenges people in power, that strengthens our democracy, that strengthens our constitution.
Okay,
and
Adwaita
all of us
wants
can
to
live
respond.
in harmony.
It's a very impassioned plea. Adwaita, yes, go on, ma'am.
Right, I mean, it's strange to think that Bollywood has the ability to radicalize people and not radicalization itself, which has led to terrible attacks on Indian soil against Indian citizens as recently as last month in the middle of a crowded street at Red radicalized individual in this. It's the state. So that doesn't, it's not a problem. But the potential for thoughts for change because of a movie is so great that we must appeal to every good quality in human beings. No, I think we're missing the wood for the trees. I mean, what is really
Okay.
happening here is that there is a presence of radicalism. We have to address it. Filmmaking and films are not the medium to address that radicalism. Okay, just
Okay.
as film, I don't take lessons on feminism from movies. I don't take lessons on what it means to live together from films,
You
right?
know,
So let's not
I'm really
again,
thankful to all of
expand
you
this
for
into
joining
some
me on
great
this part
movement.
of India First on Dhurandar. But in the days and weeks ahead, perhaps we'll continue this conversation and great conversation with all of you. Many thanks for joining me.